Shalom, Kahala Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, Bashem Rakokwadash. Double honors to my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect, with the house of David reborn again in this generation. And Shalom to the 130 Yasharallah, who today are known as the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, who before losing our true heritage, we were known as, and still are, the true Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about the great dying of the indigenous natives here in America when the time of the Europeans came, or basically when the Edomites came to the Americas, and how that was biblical. But before we get into that, let's read this. This is Deuteronomy 28 and 49. Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. And this scripture here is talking about none other than your so-called Caucasians, right? We're talking about the nation of Edom, which is the biblical name for the Caucasian race. Okay, the Lord here is basically telling the Israelites that if we fail to follow his commandments, the laws that he has given us, all right, remember this is taking place when we had left Egypt and Moses was making a contract between the Lord and us Israelites, right? And this right here was one of the consequences that we would face if we failed to follow the laws, right? If we would sin. Well, this eventually ended up happening. And in fact, we are currently living under this curse today, right? Because it not only did it happen, to the southern kingdom, the so-called Negro, right? But also to the northern kingdom of Israel, the Latinos and the Native Americans, right? And this particular issue is talking about the Native American Indians, right? And also the Latinos, but mostly the Latinos, right? Because we were the first group of the Israelites who were basically greeted by the conquering Europeans, right? Which was a mixture of, Edomites, Amalek, which is the top tribe of Edom, and then also just Israelites mingled in amongst them, right? This is why when Christopher Columbus came to the Americas, he brought with him 5 Hebrew interpreters, right? And amongst his crew were native Spanish inhabitants that would also make up what you would refer to as Sephardic Jews, right? Sephardic Jews were basically the people who were considered the descendants of the Israelites back, that were in Europe, right? These would be the Jakes that came out of Rome, that followed through to the Byzantine Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, which later then became the Spanish Empire, right? Also the ones who managed to flee and not be captured by the Romans or ever go into Roman captivity, right? These were the Israelites of the southern kingdom who basically had fled out of Jerusalem before it was destroyed in 70 AD, right? And they then made their homes other places, but they still refer to themselves as the so-called Jews, right? And later on, once these false Jews, these Amalekites or Ashkenazi Jews that converted to our religion. Let me actually get out the Bible timeline so I could explain this, right? So during the time when the Ashkenazis, Jewish people, when they converted to a religion referred to as Judaism, which was based off of the heritage of the so-called, of the Southern Kingdom Jews, they then continued to live in their land of Khazaria for about 200 years, right? But then came the ancient Russians, referred to as the Rush, right? And when they came, they ultimately destroyed Amalek out of that land of Khazaria, right? And where did the Ashkenazi Jews, or Amalek, the top tribe of Edom, go? Well, they went to Spain, and they then there mingled with the Sephardic Jews, right? The original Jews, and also the the remnants of the Holy Roman Empire and those Jakes that ruled over that land, right? And they stayed there, and they eventually came up on them, right? They basically took over the kingdom of Spain little by little, right? But it wasn't completely done, because you still had Queen Isabella and all these other royalties that were there. But for the most part, you had Amalek, who owned many of the banks. They basically owned all the slave ships, and they helped to fund the voyage of Christopher Columbus, which later on came. It's there it goes. Which later on came in 1492. So that's right there is about a good 500 years, right? That Amalek had basically dwelt in that land of Spain and mingled amongst the other nations that were there, right? And that's why the people that came from Europe, they were a mixture of Edomites, Israelites, and the other nations, okay? Well, what eventually ended up happening is that when they got here, the Spanish, the Dutch, and all these other nations, they ultimately put the Northern Kingdom, right, the Latinos, into slavery, okay? And that right there took place about 1500 to 650 AD, right? Where about 42 million estimated were killed, and basically estimated only 8 million Indians or Israelites were left after slavery, right? And they had gotten so low that they basically had to find a replacement for all this cheap, slave labor. Well, what did they end up doing? Well, fast forward to 1618, and that's when the Lord made them go and grab the Southern Kingdom, right? But again, that's another story for another day. So let's go and read this article so you could understand what the Great Dying was and all the impact that it made, to show you how much, how horrible this was when these devils came up against us, right? Because what did the scripture say? That the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the ends of the earth, right? And this nation, what did they say about it? Verse 50, and a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young, and he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed, right? And what this means is he's not literally going to eat fruit and our cattle, but that everything that we create, everything that we're able to, that should be ours, is going to ultimately be theirs, right? From the things that we raise to the things that are in the land that we manage to, bring up for ourselves, these devils were going to get a piece of it, right? Well, let's go and read this article. It says, Great dying of indigenous people during colonization of America caused Earth's climate to change. It says, the great dying of indigenous people during the 15th century colonization of America caused the Earth's climate to change. A recent study says. The study from a team of scientists at the University College London was published on the Science and Medicine Research database Science Direct. Research showed that the number of indigenous people that died impacted the Earth's climate and caused it to cool prior to the Industrial Revolution. While the exact population can be difficult to pinpoint, the study estimates that Native American population pre-contact and Europeans with Europeans at 6.5 million people. The Europeans began to colonize America at the end of the 15th century. They brought diseases including smallpox, typhus, measles, influenza, diphtheria, and the Native Americans living there had never before encountered, according to the New World Encyclopedia. The widespread epidemics, along with warfare, famine, slavery, killed off an estimated 54.5 million people, approximately 90% of the indigenous population. This widespread death of the Native American people has become known as the Great Dying, right? Now it says, according to the study, the number of indigenous people that died caused agricultural activity to be reduced, leading to a secondary succession of land. Basically meaning that that once they killed enough of us off, that basically the land reclaimed itself, right? You had a bunch of overgrowth. Cities no longer were being maintained. Cities were abandoned for the most part, right? So it says, secondary secession occurs when a previously occupied area is recolonized after a disturbance that kills much or all its community. According to the Khan Academy, this means land areas being used by Native Americans for agriculture, amongst other uses, would have been able to naturally grow back. The land use change, the LCU, and increase in natural growing plant species would have caused an increase in carbon intake, removing carbon from the Earth's atmosphere and cooling the planet, the study concludes. Now, real quick, I just want to harken on this, right? Because right now, this is just a totally side, note I wanted to make about this, because right now, our world is being plagued by the elites, right? Right now, the elites are going on and clamoring about having to remove carbon from, the world's usage, right? Everybody has a supposed carbon footprint, right, of what they use every day. Well, you see, Esau, these Edomites, they have a plan on how they're going to remove that carbon, because ultimately the carbon isn't just the cars, the gas you use, the food you buy or food you eat, the clothes you buy. No, it is ultimately you, because you produce carbon. When you breathe, you exhale carbon monoxide, right? And the thing is their plan, these elites' plans of today, are the exact same plans that they had before in the Great Dying, for example, right? They're not gonna, come out and say that they're gonna kill off a lot of people so that way they could bring down the carbon, right? Like Bill Gates said, right, during his TED Talk, where he showed that equation where he basically had to say, he said that he had to take down the human population and everything else would come down, right? See, this is the same devils that were back in this time, right? That basically killed off all the northern kingdom, up until 90% of them, and to the point where it impacted the environment. Okay, just like what they're trying to do now. They're trying to impact the environment so that way there's less carbon in the world, right? Well, that carbon, surprise, is you that they're trying to get rid of, right? Because again, they made it very clear that they only want 500,000 people upon the face of the earth, and that's when you get into 500,000 people on the face of the earth. 500 million people on the face of the earth. That's the number of population that was around during the time of the Dark Ages, right, towards the end, right? So Esau wants it back to how it was when he first took over, man. But let's continue. It says, according to the study, this provides evidence that humans would have impacted the Earth system for centuries before the Industrial Revolution. The study used data including atmospheric carbon concentrations, global surface air temperatures, and the factors that could have potentially could have changed it. Land use change in the Americas and LUC in the rest of the world, amongst other factors from the years 1000 to 1800 AD. It says around 1520 and 1610, there was a near constant uptake of carbon. After 1610, the carbon uptake stopped. This uptake in carbon was result in the cooling of the planet, could have contributed to the coldest parts of the Little Ice Age, a period of time from the early 1400 centuries to the mid 19th century, when mountain glaciers expanded in areas including Alaska, New Zealand, and the European Alps, according to Britannica. It says, during this period, many parts of Europe and North Atlantic region suffered frequent cold winters and colder summers with heavy rainfall that led to crop failures and famine. The Great Dying and carbon uptake shortly thereafter correlates with the only periods in time where the Little Ice Age seemingly affected the entire planet, according to the study. Previous data was never linked LUC and the widespread death of Native Americans with climate change. the study said. So you see, so these devils, man, right? See, the main point of this is not that people themselves impact the carpet, but the fact that these devils killed off enough of us, right? They touched the Israelites, man, right? The apple of the Lord's eye, man, right? They basically, disrespected the Lord by killing off His people, His children. That would be us, the Latinos and the Native Americans, right? Along with the Southern Kingdom, the so-called Negroes, right? These devils did a lot of work, a lot of shit that they weren't supposed to do. This is Daniel's 9:11. Yea, all Israel has transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey thy voice. Therefore the curse is poured upon us, and the oath that is written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, because we have sinned against him. Right? And ultimately, man, this great death that came, right, the great dying that came to the Northern Kingdom here in America, happened because of us going off, not following the Lord, right? We were out here sacrificing each other, worshiping all these different, pantheons of false idols over here, right? Even though the Messiah came over here to the Americas and came and visited with the Native Americans and the Latinos, right? We continue to go off, and that's ultimately why the Lord brought these great plagues upon us, right? He brought that fierce nation upon the Northern Kingdom, right? And this happened not only to the Northern Kingdom, but also to the Southern Kingdom, right? And you can look here on the chart, right? Not only did we get put in slavery, but we also lost our heritage. It tells you here, it says the true Israelites went into slavery and lost their heritage, right? The so-called Jews over in the land of Israel today, when you talk to them, they claim that they have their birth records all the way back to King David, right? These devils are proud in their lies. But the good thing is that now the truth is coming out and it's bearing fruit, right? Prophecy is fulfilling itself, and the people who the curses from the Bible fall upon are being manifest. And that is being manifested as the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, who all have had the same things. We've all been visited and conquered by our captors, who ultimately were the Edomites, and we were put into slavery, right? First happened to the Latinos, then the Southern Kingdom, right? The so-called Negroes, and then ultimately finished off with the Native Indians, right? The Native American Indians, right? And that's what this is what is the result of the curses that I read to you in Deuteronomy, right? This is Zechariah 1:15. And I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease, for I was but a little displeased, and they helped further the affliction. Right? And you see, because these devils, these Edomites, right, even though they were given a blessing here in this current world, and they ultimately were set up to be that whipping stick upon the face of the earth, and namely upon us Israelites, right? They went far and beyond what they needed to, right? They did too much, right? To the point where, as you just read, man, they killed off so many Latinos that the Earth's climate changed, right? And that whole period of the mass killing of 90% of the Latinos by the Edomites, the Caucasian race, that came over here, that impacted the climate, right? But hey, what did it say here? That the Lord was very sore displeased with the heathen. So the Lord is pissed off at these Edomites for what they did, right? And it's only been a few days to the Lord, right? It's only been about 2 days that this has happened, man. That all this took place, and the Lord is still seething about it, right? And why is that? Because at us Israelites, He was only a little bit upset at us, right? And the punishment that these Edomites were supposed to inflict upon us wasn't supposed to go this far, right? It wasn't supposed to be like this, right? This was far and beyond, right? This is more than just a parent chastening, their children. This is an enemy, torturing his rivals, right? And the funny thing is we're these Edomites. When you get into the Negro, Latino, Native Americans, the Israelites, we are the closest brother to these Edomites, man. But what does the scripture say? That they broke the brotherly contract, right? When they helped Babylon take down the southern kingdom. See, the Lord was done with these devils, man, right? And this is and also because of things like this. Let's take a look real quick at this poster, right? It says, "Did you forget what the white man did to the Latinos?" Well, let's take a look, man. You remember when they were putting us in these concentration camps, right? A lot of people don't realize that around the same time that the so-called Negroes were being lynched in the streets, the same thing was happening to the Northern Kingdom, right? With the Rough Riders, right? You had that devil president, Teddy Roosevelt, who was part of these Rough Riding groups, right? There's proof and documentation showing that there is just as many hangings and lynchings of Latinos as there were of so-called Negroes, man. See, it's not exclusive to the so-called Negro that this happened, man. This is why it tells you, man, these curses are upon us, and they show who the true Israelites are, right? So not only were we lynched, man, but you can see here, man, we were destroyed, right? It says, after the battle at Matamoros, Mexico. Look at that, man, right? It's a pile of Israelites, man, and with all these Edomites standing around. Right there you go. You got these Israelites here on a ship going into slavery. You got these Israelites, these Northern Kingdom Israelites here shackled up, right? I mean, this ultimately is what they did to us, right? They even hung this lady here, Juanita Josefina Segovia, was the first woman to be hung in California. Look at that, man. They would sneak up on our villages and basically burn them down with our women and children inside. They would cut off our hands and our noses and our feet if we couldn't bring them back a bell-sized amount of gold. And they would also feed us to their dogs, right? And like I said, they would do things like basically gather 13 of us, right, and basically hang us and burn us, right? And the 13 was supposed to represent the 12 disciples plus Yahweh Shai, right, to show you how much of a devil they were, right? There you go. So you see, they also would take babies and they would rip them in half to see if they could do it, right? They would cut babies out of the Latina women's stomachs, right, and feed them to the dogs. See, these devils, they got a lot to pay for, right? And what does it say? The Most High did not. And what did he not? He did not forget what these devils did to us and also the Native Americans. Look at this. Did you forget what the white man did to the Indians? The Trail of Tears, right? Where he subjugated all the tribe of Gad and the tribe of Reuben off of their lands, and he put them on little reservations, right? Basically natural ghettos, right? He put them into slavery, killed them, try to re-educate the children, and he did it all by deceit, man. Look, here's a comic showing Esau freaking getting Gad drunk as hell, right? So that way he could get his skins off of him, man. Right? Gave us the Indians, he gave them smallpox. This is what smallpox looks like if you haven't known what it ever looked like. These two images here are Gadites suffering from smallpox that were given to the Native Americans during a time when they were supposed to be gifting blankets to them, man. These devils fucking betrayed them and performed biological warfare, right? Here you have raiders attacking villages at night, killing women and children, taking a Gadite into slavery, right? Here's it says Wounded Knee Massacre of 1891. Look at all these. Here, let's get into it real quick. Look at all these Edomites, man. Up here, all these Edomites at Wounded Knee, and look at all these Gadites that were put to death, right? See, the Lord was dealing with these Edomites, man, to allow them to be destroyed, right? And look, check this out, man. Read the caption. It says massacre of the Christian Indians. So you see, those Israelites who converted to these devils' religion, look, man, you ultimately got your comeuppance back then, right? Because you see, these Edomites will only love you so far, right? To the point where, once it behooves them to get you out of the picture because you may pose a threat, it doesn't matter if it's a woman or children. What did the scripture say? It said, a nation of fierce countenance which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. This here doesn't look like favor to the young, right? Taking our babies and slamming them against rocks, right? Or taking our children and ripping them apart, right? Or killing our children when they no longer suit you, or waiting for the men of the village to leave the village to go out on hunting and then come in and kill off the women and children, right? See, that right there is wickedness, man. This is Numbers 35 and 33. So they shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. So you see, these Edomites, man, they did a lot of bloodshedding, man, here in the South America, North America, all over, man. And the thing is how did the scripture say that it would be repaid? By the shedding of the blood of him that shed it, man. So these Edomites, they're going to have to pay for what they did, right? And it's all going to be at an appointed time. It's not now, right? If you're watching this video, don't get all roused up, because we got to just sit back and watch the Lord, do his thing, right? But it is our job to be out here to tell these Edomites that, hey, you're going to have to pay back for what your forefathers did, because you are your forefathers and you're back here in this time, okay? This is Obadiah 1 and 9. It says, and thy mighty men, O Teman, right, the Germans, shall be dismayed to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter, right? The mount of Esau meaning all the nobles, the kings, right? The rulership over Esau, this government, will be cut off by slaughter. Verse 10, for thy violence against thy brother Jacob, right? Jacob being the Negro, Latino, Native Americans, shame shall cover thee, right? Are these Edomites not right now shameful or in shame when people start talking about critical race theory, CRT? Do they not try to ban, bringing up of history where they've done wickedness? That's what that is. Shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. Jumping down to verse 15. For the day of Yahweh Bashem Yahshai is near upon all of the heathen, right? This means all the other 17 nations, including Esau. As thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall return upon thine own head, right? So this is why I say, man, that after the Lord comes back and all the other nations go into slavery or go into a form of captivity, that some nations are going to have it easier, I should say, and other nations are going to have it harsh. And why? Because it tells me here, it says, thy reward shall return upon thine own head. So how a nation treated us, that's how they're going to be treated. So when you know what these Edomites did to us, man, that's what these devils are going to get. They're going to get exactly what they dished out. And the scriptures say, man, do unto them, it says like double, So the thing is these devils are going to get paid back for the wickedness that they did. Verse 16. For as ye have drunk upon my holy mountain, that holy mountain would be the Negro, Latino, Native Americans, right? Israel. So shall all the heathen drink continually. Yea, they shall drink, and they shall swallow down, and they shall be as though they had not been. So you see, all the nations, including these Edomites, man, they're going to take that cup of indignation from the Lord, and the Lord's going to bring them down low. So low that nobody's ever going to be asking, hey, do you remember about the American Empire? Do you remember how amazing the German Empire was? How regal and the British Empire was, and oh, look at how France was so prosperous and all. Nobody's gonna be doing that in the kingdom, man, right? It's gonna be as though they had never been, because in the kingdom, after thousands of years, people are gonna forget that Esau even existed, right? After his captivity, he's gonna be destroyed and burnt up, and his soul, as Apostle Tahar says, their souls will basically be reintroduced to the other nations, but they'll never be Israelites, and the nation of Edom shall no longer exist, right? As a standalone nation, right? Just like the tribe of Dan, right? So the tribe of Dan no longer is a standalone tribe. It's now been amalgamated into the other tribes, right? And that's exactly what's going to happen to these Edomites, man. They're going to go into a captivity for 1,000 years. After that captivity, they shall be wiped out, and then ultimately they'll be reintroduced into existence through the other nations, living as the other nations, being part of those nations, but ultimately down there to serve us. This is for verse 17. But upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possession. Whose possession? There is Esau, these Edomites, right? We're gonna take everything, man. We're gonna take the nice houses, you have around the world. You're gonna take the nice properties, all the jewels, the precious metals, everything, man. It's gonna belong to us because it is ours, right? And in verse 18, and the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, right? The house of Jacob would represent the southern kingdom, so-called Negroes, and the house of Joseph would be the northern kingdom, right? The Latinos and Native Americans. And the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai hath spoken it. So there you go, Akim. Hopefully this video was edifying. Hopefully I was able to expand on what the great dying was, just to show what how savage and fierce these devils, these Edomites, were, man. Right? But now the Lord is breaking the rod of their staff, right? Their staff of rulership. The Lord is putting a perverse spirit on these devils and ultimately ruining His seed, right? But hey, that's for another lesson. Like I said, hopefully this video was edifying. Until the next time, I want to give all honor and glory and praises to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Rakah Dash. Double honors to my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect. Shalom.